Okay, folks, we have some breaking news. Pierre Poilievre did an emergency press conference today in Parliament, and boy, oh boy, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are not in a good position. It just seems like day after day, not week or month, but day after day, there is a new scandal appointed every single day to either specifically Justin Trudeau or the Liberals. And well, what we're going to be talking about today is something that has resurfaced. So this article right here is from 2021. Wake up call for Canada. Security experts say case of two fired scientists could point to espionage. So we're going to take a look at what Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative folks have to say about that. But of course, before we get into it, I want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It really does help grow the channel. We're on route to 400,000 subscribers here on Mr. Sunshine Baby. And if you turn post notifications on, it's that little bell icon that shows up once you are subscribed. It actually gives you a bit of a better standing chance to be notified of upcoming videos. YouTube has this really weird thing internally where either there's like a disgruntled employee or just their system likes to unsubscribe people and remove post notification privileges. So with that bell icon, it's kind of like the last hope. It's the Obi-Wan Kenobi. So without further ado, let's get into this here. You may or may not have seen this, but nonetheless, we're going to watch it and we're going to provide some comments about it.
The cost, the crime, the corruption, and the cover-up. But now we know that he cannot protect our people or our country. We just received these documents that Trudeau has been covering up for years. Documents related to a massive security breach at the Trudeau government's most sensitive laboratory, where the most dangerous viruses and pathogens are studied and handled. We have learned that the Trudeau government's head of pathogens was collaborating with members of Beijing's People's Liberation Army who are responsible for bioweapons and bioterrorism. We know now that a People's Liberation Army official was able to gain personal access, walk in the door, look at computers, and has access to all of our most important virological secrets.
So I just want to add a little bit more context to this. This isn't something that the Conservatives have personally investigated and come to this conclusion. This is something that CSIS, our national defense, has investigated because the Conservatives have been pressing about it, but our own national police, our own national security, right? CSIS, right? Like the FBI or NSA, like just take that concept and apply it to Canada. CSIS is our somewhat equivalent to that, right? Just whatever, let's just run with that. They are the ones who have decided that, yeah, no, this is a cover-up. There was espionage happening from China here in Canada. This is a real thing. It's not Pierre Poilievre that's saying there is espionage or there isn't. It's our national defense. It's above Conservatives. It's about anyone's opinion. There's an actual investigation that has found that this is real. This is legitimate. So why aren't you hearing about it on mainstream media? Why aren't you hearing about it from Justin Trudeau and the Liberals? Because, folks, that's what a cover-up is. When you're found to be, through a very legal investigation, guilty of certain things, you don't come out and say, yeah, I did that and I am sorry. Normal people, yeah, normal people do that. Good, honorable people do that. Good public servants do that, but not the Liberals and not Justin Trudeau. So that's why you might not see this on the media or the television or in the newspaper. This is a very, very real thing. The tippity top of severeness.
Let me, if you think any of this is hyperbole, read the report yourself. This is from government documents, the Trudeau government's own documents. It says here on page 142, Winnipeg lab scientist Dr. Chu, pathogens unit, the top person in that job, according to documents on page 242, quote, represents a serious and credible danger to the government of Canada as a whole, and in particular at facilities considered high security due to the potential for theft of dangerous materials attractive to terrorists and foreign entities that conduct espionage damage the economic security of Canada, end quote. It states further on page 239, investigators assess that Dr. Chu communicated with foreign entities during her trips to China. The evidence obtained from interviews and from information collected from the electronic content of her devices reveal that this is indeed the case. As a subject matter expert with access to sensitive information and dangerous materials, Dr. Chu presents a realistic and credible threat to Canada's economic security when conducting repeated and clandestine meetings with foreign entities, end quote. Then it says Dr. Chu conducted joint research with the Major General Chen Wei of the People's Liberation Army, who, according to page 236, is a noted top virologist at the Academy of Military Medical Sciences and is China's chief biological defense expert engaged in research related to biosafety, biodefense, and bioterrorism. Bioterrorism, end quote. And these are documents, this is right out of the government's own documents. Trudeau, what did he do when he found out about this? Did he immediately inform Canadians of the breach? Did he fire anybody? No, no one was fired. Did he call an inquiry to get to the bottom of it? No, he didn't do that either. Instead, he covered it all up. He defied 4 parliamentary orders to release these documents. When the Speaker tried to get them, he sued the Speaker to cover this up. He said it was all for national security, but well, we know from a committee composed of 4 members of Parliament, including 1 Liberal, and 3 judges, and I quote, the information appears to be mostly about protecting the organization from embarrassment for failures in policy and implementation, not legitimate national security concerns.
Okay, so this is the hardest thing for some people, like normies, to understand, right? Now, if we remove the context of like because prime minister is in a position of authority, right? So let's remove the context of a prime minister and let's just replace that title with like a mom or a dad or like a family member, right? Now, it's hard sometimes for people to see that people that have a position of authority over your and my life have a self-interest. They're not genuine, right? They're narcissistic and they are manipulative and they cover up all of their scandals. And that's very, very difficult for people to see. Not so much for you and I right now with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the entire Liberal and NDP government, because you're watching this channel, chances are you already have a very strong opinion of this entire situation. But for the normies out there that are in constant denial, Justin Trudeau's our prime minister. It's our government. Of course our government wouldn't do this. They wouldn't betray us. They wouldn't try and cover up something. They're not working for other countries' governments. No, they're focused here on Canada. And it's super hard for a lot of people to just have that glass shattered and then come to the realization of, oh, no, that is a bad person. And he's in a very important position. And these are the people running our country, and they're actively sabotaging our government. That's like one of the most difficult things to understand. And let's go back to the analogy of like a parent. When a parent is manipulating their own child, or you have a toxic family member that's manipulating you or trying to, right? It's very difficult to see that because you don't want to see it. You don't want to see that position, the person who has that position of authority over you or whatever it is, that they're a bad person, they have bad motives. It's very, very difficult, but that's why it's so important to share these videos and keep the conversation going because people have to be informed about this. This is so freaking severe. You have the country's leader, the prime minister, is covering up and he's trying to sue everybody and bury actual, tangible, investigative work from the tippity top national security saying, yeah, you're transferring information to China, a communist dictatorship. Oh, you've also said in the past that you admire China's communist dictatorship. Oh, you're racist. Oh, you've like allegedly abused women, right? Like when he elbowed that woman on the House floor in Parliament. Like all of these things add up. It's not good behavior. It's scandal after scandal after scandal. We're not going to talk about all the scandals, but There's too many to list. There's too many right now. But let's get back to this video here. But I'd love to, first of all, before I press play, I'd like to know what you guys think down below about what I just said about that glass being shattered of a position, or a person who's in a position of authority over you, where you just have those blinders and you can't see that they're bad. They're bad behavior. They're manipulative. They're disgraceful. It's one of the most difficult things to see.
Release is essential to hold the government to account. In other words, there was no national security reason why we couldn't have had this before. It was only because Trudeau didn't want the embarrassment before an election. So what did he do then? He collaborated, knowing this, he collaborated with Beijing to buy a vaccine for COVID. Could you imagine if the deal that Trudeau wanted to sign with Beijing had gone ahead, and we had procured China-made vaccines after learning this information? That's what was in this guy's head. And if you think for a minute, because I know there'll be all kinds of excuses, well, he's not responsible, and how could he possibly take ownership of what happens in his government? Let me quote him. He has a document called Open and Accountable Government. And I quote, "As head of government, the Prime Minister has special responsibilities for national security." End quote. It's his responsibility. This is his government's lab. It's not a random university lab. It's the top lab for the Prime Minister's public health agency. And he is exclusively responsible for the machinery of government as Prime Minister of the country.
Yes.
So this is on Justin Trudeau. I will add one last thing. Not only did he cover it up, not only did he try to get a vaccine from China after knowing this, he called a snap election to make sure that the voting would happen before this came out. And what happened in that election? Beijing interfered to help him win it. This is a man who says he admires China's basic communist dictatorship. We cannot trust Justin Trudeau to keep our people and its country safe. We need a strong, conservative, common-sense government that will root out foreign interference, protect our critical secrets and our medical research, and stand on guard for our country to keep our people and our nation safe. Thank you.
On ArriveCan, there is a report by CTV that says that there was a man who runs a company that got $8 million for ArriveCan. He is still employed by...
So we're talking about a lab scandal, and the first question from a reporter is not about the lab scandal, but it's about the most other recent scandal that Justin Trudeau just had, which is the ArriveCan, where a DND employee, our government, right, Department of National Defense, there's an employee who's on government payroll, who owns a company, who got a government contract for millions of dollars, and the government's like, we didn't know that he was a government employee. It must have been an alias. That's what this question is about. He's doing a press conference about one scandal, and the first question is about another scandal. That's how popular these scandals are. You can't make this shit up. This is absurd. There's no TV show in the world on Netflix, Disney, Amazon Prime, Apple TV. By the way, you shouldn't have Disney if you're struggling with your bills. You shouldn't have Disney, according to Chrystia Freeland. There is no television show in the world that is as ridiculous as what's happening right now in real life in Canada.
The Department of National Defense. What does that say to you?
It says to me that there's no accountability. Now that we know this individual should be immediately fired, and there should be an immediate police investigation of his conduct and that of the company with which he's associated, and a broader inquiry within the public service about how this contracting was allowed to go on for so long.
On the Winnipeg lab, do you think the National Microbiology Lab infectious disease researchers should be allowed to do any collaborations with China at this point?
No.
No.
Can you explain why?
Because we know that in this instance that our highest placed, most sensitive lab was infiltrated by people who collaborated with the People's Liberation Army, who did not reveal any of their ongoing partnerships with the regime in Beijing, and who transferred materials from our most critical lab containing our most dangerous viruses over to Beijing and worked in collaboration with the Wuhan lab. So I don't think this is the kind of collaboration we want. We should be collaborating with like-minded democracies that we can trust, not those that want to attack our interests.
Do you use pharmacare?
So as Mr. Poilievre has said, the government's own documents have confirmed
Lower the microphone a bit.
security breaches at the Winnipeg lab represent a very serious and credible danger to Canada and a realistic and credible threat to Canada's economic security. As Mr. Poilievre has also said, in the government's own founding document, Open and Accountable Government, the Prime Minister alone is responsible for the machinery of government, and the Prime Minister has a special responsibility for national security. It is clear in these documents that the Prime Minister failed in his responsibility to protect the security of Canadians against a very serious threat against this country and its citizens. It's also clear that the Prime Minister failed to ensure that the machinery of government was set up in a way to ensure that these kinds of things did not happen at the Winnipeg lab. In addition to all of this, what is equally appalling is the cover-up. It was 3 years ago that we asked for these documents. In fact, as Mr. Poilievre said, the House of Commons and its 2 committees issued 4 orders for the production of these documents 3 years ago. It was 4 years ago that these scientists were marched out of the lab in Winnipeg. And during these last 4 years, the government covered it up. It initially, as you'll recall, tried to punt this to the NSICOP committee. And then it took the Speaker to court. And then it actually created this ad hoc committee of 4 MPs and 3 judges that took another year and a half to review these documents. So this has been a massive cover-up on part of this government, and it's particularly appalling in light of the fact that this is a government that came to office promising greater transparency. We have seen anything but. In fact, it has been said by information commissioners that we've seen a reversal in transparency on part of this government, probably one of the worst reversals in modern government, Canadian government history. We've also have a government here that promised to respect Parliament. And here we are, 3 years after we asked for these documents, and finally starting to get some of the truth behind what happened. And so this is a damning indictment on this Prime Minister, his management of the Government of Canada, and his lack of respect for our democracy.
Good morning, everyone. Canadians need to know that 2 scientists with deep relationship with many institutions inside the People's Republic of China infiltrated Canada's top microbiology lab in Winnipeg. While there, People's Liberation Army scientists from the Academy of Military Medical Scientists, which is charged with biology-enabled weapons, were able to gain a secret security clearance which gave them unfettered and unsupervised access to the laboratory and to the computer-based science network. This is a travesty and a breach of security at the highest levels that cannot be tolerated. Aside from all this, we know very clearly that the Trudeau Liberal government wanted to cover this up, denying 4 orders of Parliament, taking the Speaker to court, and calling an unnecessary election during COVID, which of course resulted in us understanding now very clearly that there was Chinese interference in that election. Canadians need to know also that this was not a national security threat cover-up. It was a cover-up to avoid political embarrassment. This is an embarrassment to our country, and Canadians also need to know who is going to be held responsible in this Sunny Ways government. Who covered this up? Who is at the head from a political nature? Why did they cover up for so long? And when will someone, such as a minister or a prime minister, be held responsible on behalf of all Canadians? I thank you.
Just one more thing we just want to add to this is as we actually look at this and you think about the documents that we all took a lot of time last night going through and the cover-up that we've been going under for the last 3 years because of Justin Trudeau and his corruption and his cover-ups. We've got to remember that if you look at page 97, paragraph number 5 in the CSIS document, it says, and this is where this gets really critical here when it comes to our national security, the Academy of Military Medical Sciences of the People's Liberation Army of the People's Republic of China and has offensive chemical and biological weapons capabilities. As per China's key national research and development priorities is to support national defense research projects by transforming the results of basic civil research into military applications. So although you have Justin Trudeau not at all concerned about our national security, more concerned about his political embarrassments. Us as Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre want to make sure that we continue to go out there and support our national security and make sure that this never happens again. We don't know exactly what materials, technology, viruses, and other biological things that are in that lab were actually turned over to the PRC and to the People's Liberation Army. We know that they're interested in weaponization. And so we cannot have these biological weapons created in China and used against us here in Canada or our allies. You want to talk about an embarrassment. This is a national embarrassment. It's an international embarrassment, and our own national security is at risk.
Man, this stuff could wipe out a whole country or half a country or the world, right? If it's weaponized, that's the whole purpose of this. It's not just, oh, it was a bit of an oopsie, or ooh, we shared a little bit of information. No, we shared some stuff like a nuke level amount of information, right? This is insane, man. Absolutely insane. And great on the Conservatives for really jumping on this and Pierre Poilievre's YouTube channel to push this out and all of their clips and stuff like that, because the media is not going to want to talk about this. You have to rely on YouTube videos like this to get this information, because they're trying to suppress it. They're trying to make sure that the people aren't aware of it, because, well, God forbid Justin Trudeau loses the next election because he's actually held accountable for his stuff. It's not an embarrassment. Doesn't even cover the surface for how deep of a shit show this is, and it's insane. It's peak insanity, folks. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments about this. Are you fed up? How are you feeling about this? The fact that China now has some virus information about what we've been working on here in Canada, and they've actually in the past, it seems like what the Conservatives are saying, they're trying to weaponize things, which could be weaponized against us. So very, very scary times. Definitely not sunny ways, as Justin Trudeau likes to say. But that's where we're going to end today's video, folks. Love to know your thoughts and comments and concerns down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you drop a like on the video and you subscribe, and that you turn post notifications on so you can actually be notified of upcoming videos. I'm out of breath, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.